In 2018, Argentine football was not just broken, it was shattered. The national team had just suffered one of its most humiliating World Cup exits. The locker room was divided, the press was in a frenzy, and the greatest player of all time, Lionel Messi, stood on the brink of walking away from his country forever. In that moment of total darkness, the Argentine Football Federation made a move that everyone called a joke. They appointed an interim manager with zero first-team head coaching experience, a man whose name, outside of hardcore football circles, meant nothing. That man was Lionel Scaloni. But what no one knew then was this: Scaloni wasn't just some accidental placeholder, he was a silent architect, a man who had been watching, learning, and preparing in the shadows for this very moment. While the world saw a nobody, those who looked closer saw a fierce tactical mind forged in the fires of football's greatest stages. His journey to that desperate summer wasn't a straight line, it was a masterclass in resilience. Before he could rebuild a broken nation, he first had to rebuild himself. Lionel Sebastian Scaloni was born on May 16, 1978, in the small city of Pujato, Santa Fe. This wasn't the bustling football capital of Buenos Aires. This was farm country, hard work, humility, and dirt under your fingernails. His family wasn't rich. His father drove a tractor. Football wasn't a path to glamour, it was an escape, a passion played on dusty streets with a ball that had long lost its shine. His talent, however, couldn't be hidden by the dust. By 16, he left home for Newell's Old Boys, the same academy that gave the world Lionel Messi and Marcelo Bielsa. But here's the first twist. Scaloni wasn't a flashy striker or a magical playmaker. He was a defender, a right back, a position built on discipline, sacrifice, and reading the game 2 steps ahead. While others sought glory, Scaloni learned the geometry of space. He learned to stop heroes before they could become heroes. His professional debut came at 18, but his big break was a transfer to Europe in 1998. Not to Barcelona or Madrid, but to Deportivo La Coruña in Spain. At the time, Deportivo were Super Depor, a giant killer team challenging Barcelona and Real Madrid for the title. Scaloni arrived as a young Argentine kid in a dressing room full of seasoned internationals. He wasn't an immediate star. He sat on the bench, he trained, and he watched. He learned from masters of pragmatic, tactical football. This was where the foundation of his coaching brain was poured. After 2 years seeking playing time, he went on loan to clubs like West Ham United in England and Racing Santander back in Spain. At West Ham, he experienced the brutal physical pace of the Premier League. In England, there was no time for fancy tactics. It was about heart, fight, and survival. Scaloni adapted. He added grit to his intelligence. But these moves weren't the steps of a future legend. They were the journeyman steps of a solid professional fighting for his career. The turning point in his playing career, and perhaps the single most important experience for the future World Cup winning manager, came in 2006. After years of steady club performances, he was called up for the Argentine national team for the 2006 FIFA World Cup in Germany. He wasn't just called up, he started at right back in a squad dripping with talent: a young Lionel Messi, Juan Ramon Riquelme, Carlos Tevez, Javier Mascherano. This was Scaloni's pinnacle as a player. He played in the group stages, including a famous 6-0 win over Serbia and Montenegro, where he assisted a goal. He experienced the immense pressure, the national expectation, and the intricate dynamics of a squad filled with global superstars. He saw firsthand how a team of individuals could collapse under that pressure. Argentina looked like favorites, but crashed out in the quarterfinals. The dream ended. Scaloni filed away every single emotion, every tactical detail, every moment of locker room tension. This would be his textbook years later. After the World Cup, his club career became a global tour. He played in Italy for Lazio, in Spain for Mallorca and Atletico Madrid, and even in Greece. He was reliable, versatile, and deeply respected by teammates for his football IQ and professionalism. But by 2015, the playing journey was winding down. Most players in this situation fade away. They go into punditry or open a restaurant. Not Scaloni. He had a different plan, one that required him to start again from the very bottom. In 2016, he quietly retired, and instead of chasing a glamorous managerial job, he went back to school. He returned to the Argentine Football Association and took a role no famous ex-player would ever consider. He became the assistant coach and video analyst for the Argentine U20 national team. Let that sink in. A former World Cup starter was now spending his days breaking down footage of teenage players, studying opposition formations, and preparing scouting reports. He was the guy in the back room with the laptop, not the one on the touchline. This is where the zero was born. The media saw a glorified note-taker, but Scaloni was building his ultimate weapon: knowledge. He learned how to manage young, hungry egos. He mastered the art of opposition analysis. He worked under Jorge Sampaoli, a chaotic, high-press manager, witnessing both the brilliance and the flaws of a volatile system. When Sampaoli was promoted to the senior team coach in 2017, he took Scaloni with him as an assistant. Scaloni was now in the inner circle of the senior Argentine setup during its most turbulent period. And then came Russia 2018, the disaster. Argentina scraped through the group stage before being utterly dismantled 4-3 by a brilliant French team in the round of 16. The team was a mess. Sampaoli's tactics were confused, the defense was in shambles, and Messi was left isolated. The federation fired Sampaoli immediately after the tournament. They needed a cheap, temporary solution to navigate a few friendlies while they searched for a big-name savior. Their eyes landed on the quiet, unassuming assistant, Lionel Scaloni. The announcement was met with universal ridicule. "Scaloni who?" headlines screamed. "A puppet for the Federation," fans cried. They called him a nobody, a stopgap, a warm body. Even the players were skeptical. The world had written his story before it began: failure, then exit. But they missed one thing. They missed the fire in the eyes of the man from Pujato. They missed the decades of silent preparation. They missed the fact that Scaloni had nothing to lose and a whole country's pride to gain. The greatest underdog story in football history was quietly kicking off. His first test was just months away, a series of friendly matches against Guatemala and Colombia. The world was waiting for the collapse, but Scaloni was waiting for his chance. The first match under the new, temporary manager was a friendly against Guatemala in Los Angeles. The world expected a shaky, confused Argentina. They got something else entirely. Scaloni didn't try to be a tactical revolutionary overnight. He did something smarter. He went back to basics. He picked a mix of experienced warriors and young, hungry talents nobody else had dared to trust. He fielded a 4-3-3, emphasized simple passing, defensive solidity, and, most importantly, he gave the players something they had lost: clarity. Argentina won 3-0. It wasn't a flashy victory against a giant, but it was clean, organized, and professional. The press barely noticed. "Just Guatemala," they said. But inside the camp, a small shift occurred. Players started to look at this quiet coach differently. He spoke softly, but with absolute conviction. His training sessions were meticulously planned, every drill with a purpose. He wasn't a motivational speaker, he was a teacher. And for a team that had been lost in tactical chaos, a teacher was exactly what they needed. The real test came 4 days later against a strong Colombia side. Scaloni made bold changes, giving starts to young players like Lautaro Martinez and Giovanni Lo Celso. The match ended in a frustrating 0-0 draw, but Argentina dominated possession and created chances. The performance had identity. For the first time in years, Argentina looked like a team with a plan, not just a collection of stars hoping for individual magic. The interim label on Scaloni's jacket started to feel less like a limitation and more like a formality. Behind the scenes, Scaloni and his small, trusted staff, including his former teammate Pablo Aimar, were working day and night. They weren't just preparing for the next friendly, they were building a project. Scaloni's phone became a direct line to Lionel Messi. Their conversations weren't just about tactics, they were about rebuilding belief. Scaloni, who had stood beside Messi on the pitch in 2006, understood the weight on his captain's shoulders like few others could. He didn't ask Messi to carry the team, he promised to build a team that could carry itself, with Messi as its crown jewel. The Argentine Football Federation, still searching for a big name, extended Scaloni's interim role through the 2019 Copa America. The decision was seen as a lack of ambition, a stopgap until they could lure a European superstar manager. The pressure on Scaloni was now immense. The Copa America in Brazil was to be his true audition, and failure meant not just his own dismissal, but the potential end of an era for Argentine football. Scaloni's response was to double down on his vision: youth, intensity, and a collective spirit. He made the most controversial decision of his young managerial career. He began to phase out several iconic, aging stars who had been pillars of the team for a decade. In their place, he built a new backbone. He bet on a 22-year-old center-back from the Portuguese league named Nicolás Otamendi. No, someone even less known. He solidified the defense around the grit of Nicolás Otamendi and the composure of a new partner. But his masterstroke was in midfield. He identified a 21-year-old kid playing for Ajax Amsterdam, a boy with a tireless engine and a warrior's heart, Leandro Paredes. He saw a future leader in Rodrigo de Paul, a dynamic midfielder from Udinese, and most crucially, he resurrected Giovanni Lo Celso, giving him the creative keys. This wasn't just a new midfield, it was a new mentality. It was aggressive, it pressed, and it played for each other. The 2019 Copa America began. Argentina's first match was against Colombia again. They lost 2-0. The old doubts came roaring back. "See, we told you Scaloni isn't ready," screamed the headlines. The pressure was suffocating. But inside the camp, Scaloni remained eerily calm. He analyzed the defeat, made subtle adjustments, and stood firmly behind his players. He showed no panic, only focus. That calmness spread. They drew their next match against Paraguay and then found their rhythm, beating Qatar and Venezuela to reach the semifinals. There, they faced the host nation and ultimate favorites, Brazil. In the heat of Belo Horizonte, Scaloni set up his team not to fear, but to fight. He deployed a compact, disciplined 4-4-2 system, sacrificing some attack to neutralize Brazil's deadly wings. For 90 minutes, his plan worked perfectly. The game was goalless, a tactical stalemate masterminded by the apprentice against the masters. But football can be cruel. In the 71st minute, a deflection, a scramble in the box, and Gabriel Jesus scored. Argentina lost 2-0. The dream of a trophy was over. Yet something profound happened in that defeat. The team hadn't collapsed. They hadn't been humiliated. They had stood toe-to-toe with the best and fallen to fine margins. The players walked off the pitch not with heads bowed in shame, but with fists clenched in determination. They felt for the first time they belonged. Messi, in a post-match interview, didn't talk of retirement. He spoke of a path and a group. The seed of what was to come had been planted. Scaloni had earned the respect of his nation and finally a permanent contract. The interim tag was removed. He was now the official manager of the Argentine national team. His mission was no longer to just steady the ship, it was to make it conquer oceans. His next challenge was the 2021 Copa America, once again hosted by Brazil. The pressure was now absolute. It was time for results. Scaloni, ever evolving, made his final tactical masterstroke. He abandoned the 4-3-3/4-4-2 variations and cemented a 4-3-1-2 system. This wasn't just a formation change, it was a philosophical revolution. He placed Messi in a free, central role behind two strikers, often Lautaro Martinez, and a surprise starter, the relentless Angel Di Maria. This system maximized Messi's creative genius while providing him with constant movement and options. More importantly, Scaloni forged the most formidable midfield unit in international football. Rodrigo de Paul became the undisputed engine, the ball winner, and the emotional leader. Leandro Paredes controlled the tempo from deep with his majestic passing range. Giovanni Lo Celso, and later Alexis McAllister, provided the link and ingenuity. This trio played with an almost telepathic understanding, a blend of steel, silk, and sweat that was Scaloni's signature. The tournament began, and Argentina looked like a machine. They went unbeaten in the group stage. The unity was palpable. Players celebrated each other's goals as if they were their own. The image of Scaloni on the touchline, intense but controlled, whispering instructions to Pablo Aimar, became a symbol of this new, thoughtful Argentina. They marched to the final, and there, once again, stood their arch-rival, Brazil, in the Maracanã. The stage was set for heartbreak or history. Scaloni's pre-match talk wasn't a fiery scream, it was a clear tactical brief. He knew Brazil's strengths, he knew their weaknesses. His plan was executed to perfection in the 22nd minute. A brilliant, flowing team move ended with Rodrigo de Paul launching a 40-yard diagonal pass to the sprinting Angel Di Maria, who chipped the goalkeeper with sublime elegance. 1-0. What followed was 70 minutes of the most intense, disciplined, and heroic defensive performance in Argentine history. Every player became a warrior. Scaloni made perfect substitutions, bringing on fresh legs to defend the precious lead. When the final whistle blew, Argentina had won. Lionel Messi fell to his knees. Lionel Scaloni stood, took a deep breath, and allowed himself a small, quiet smile. The man from Pujato, the former nobody, had just delivered Argentina's first major trophy in 28 years. The Zero had officially become a hero. But for Scaloni, this was not the end. It was merely the end of the beginning. A bigger dream, the ultimate dream, was now on the horizon, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. The tactician had proven himself. Now the psychologist, the man-manager, the alchemist of team spirit would face his final, ultimate test.
The triumph at the Maracanã was a seismic shift, but Lionel Scaloni knew the truth all great coaches understand. In football, you are only as good as your next match. The 2021 Copa America victory wasn't a finish line, it was fuel. It validated his methods, welded his squad into a brotherhood, and turned the world's skepticism into wary respect. Now, the ultimate shadow loomed, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. For Argentina, and for Lionel Messi, this was the final haunting quest. For Scaloni, it was the examination of a lifetime. He returned to work with a cold focus. The celebratory parades in Buenos Aires were still echoing, but Scaloni was already in a darkened video room, analyzing. The World Cup qualifiers were still ongoing, and he used them not just to secure passage, but as a laboratory. He began to experiment with subtle tweaks. He tested a back-three system against Uruguay. He gave debuts to future pillars like Cristian Romero and Nahuel Molina, integrating them slowly into the defensive unit that had just conquered Brazil. Every decision was calculated. Every substitution had a long-term purpose. But then, fate threw a grenade into his meticulously laid plans. In November 2021, during a routine qualifier against Brazil, the unthinkable happened. Argentina's iconic goalkeeper and emotional rock, Emiliano Martinez, collided with a teammate and was stretchered off. The diagnosis was a severe knee ligament strain. The timeline was tight. He would race to be fit for the World Cup, but his form was a giant question mark. For a lesser coach, this could have been a crisis. For Scaloni, it was a problem to solve. He immediately placed his trust in Martinez's relentless work ethic and turned his attention to fortifying the defense in front of him, making the unit so cohesive it could protect any goalkeeper. The final qualifying phase was a masterclass in management. Argentina went unbeaten. Scaloni rotated his squad, managed fatigue, and kept every single player, from the biggest star to the youngest rookie, feeling invested and important. He created an environment where competition for places was fierce but never toxic. The Scaloni effect was now visible, a team that played with the joy of friends in a park, but with the tactical discipline of a European club giant. Then came the draw. Argentina was placed in Group C with Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. The press called it a kind draw. Scaloni called it a trap. He drilled into his players the dangers of complacency, the unique styles of each opponent, and the weight of expectation that would now crush them as one of the favorites. The base camp was set in Qatar. Here, Scaloni's man management genius reached its peak. He understood that winning a World Cup is as much about psychology as it is about physics. He allowed families into the camp, fostering a relaxed, home-like atmosphere. He organized team barbecues, video game tournaments, and music sessions where he, often shy, would sit and listen to his players laugh. He wasn't a distant general, he was the trusted elder brother of a family. This was no longer just a football team, it was La Familia Scaloni, a phrase that would soon echo around the world. The tournament began. The first match, Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. The script was supposed to be simple, a comfortable victory. Lionel Messi scored a penalty in the 10th minute, and then football happened. In a surreal 3-minute spell in the second half, Saudi Arabia scored twice. Argentina, the unbeaten juggernaut, was stunned, outpressed, and defeated 2-1. It was one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. The world erupted. Frauds! The pressure got to them. Messi's curse continues. For many teams, that defeat would have been a terminal fracture. This was Scaloni's moment of truth. In the silent, devastated locker room, he did not scream, he did not blame. He gathered his men and spoke with a calm that cut through the panic. "Look at me," he reportedly said. "This is football. This is why it's beautiful. It tests you. Now we show who we really are. We lose together, and now we fight together, one match at a time. Believe in what we do." He made bold, immediate changes. For the must-win match against Mexico, he altered the midfield, bringing in the younger, more dynamic Enzo Fernandez and Alexis McAllister. The tension against Mexico was palpable, a nervous, gritty battle. For over an hour, Argentina struggled. And then, in the 64th minute, the magic arrived. A low pass from Angel Di Maria found Lionel Messi 25 yards out. He controlled, took a touch, and unleashed a low, guided missile into the bottom corner. The eruption of relief was monumental. Later, Enzo Fernandez would seal it with a gorgeous curling finish. Argentina won 2-0. The ship was steadied. Scaloni's faith in his system and his bold substitutions had saved their tournament. The final group game against Poland was a controlled 2-0 victory with goals from McAllister and Julian Alvarez. The knockout stages had arrived. The path was brutal. Australia in the round of 16, then the Netherlands, then potentially Croatia, and then a final against the might of France. Scaloni prepared for each like a chess master studying an opponent's entire career. Against Australia, it was a professional 2-1 win, but a late scare reinforced the need for focus. Then came the quarterfinal against the Netherlands. This was a tactical and psychological war. Scaloni set up to counter the Dutch height and physicality. Argentina raced to a 2-0 lead, but the Netherlands, masterfully coached by Louis van Gaal, fought back with 2 late set-piece goals. The second, a stunning last-second volley from a rehearsed free-kick routine. The game went to extra time and then penalties. Here, Scaloni's preparation shone. He had dedicated specific training to penalty shootouts for months. He knew who would take them, in what order, and how to manage the nerve-wracking wait. But his most crucial contribution was emotional. He walked to each player before they stepped up, holding their faces, looking into their eyes, delivering not instruction but unwavering confidence. Emiliano Martinez became a national deity, saving 2 penalties. Argentina advanced. Scaloni's fiery, celebrated confrontation with the Dutch bench after the match showed the world the passion that usually lay hidden beneath his calm exterior. This was his family, and he would defend them against anyone. The final game against Croatia was a masterpiece. Scaloni identified Luka Modric as the heart of Croatia and designed a plan to suffocate him. He deployed Enzo Fernandez to shadow him, while Rodrigo de Paul and Alexis McAllister controlled the midfield battle. The result was a breathtaking 3-0 demolition. Messi was sublime. Alvarez relentless. It was a perfect performance, a testament to Scaloni's tactical flexibility and his ability to get a perfect performance from his team on the biggest stage. And so it came down to one match, Argentina versus France, the Lusail iconic stadium, the legacy of Lionel Messi, the destiny of Lionel Scaloni. Scaloni's plan was executed flawlessly for 80 minutes. He used a 4-4-2 defensive block to neutralize the threat of Kylian Mbappé, with Nahuel Molina performing a defensive miracle. Di Maria, chosen for his big-game pedigree, was magnificent, winning a penalty and scoring a sublime team goal. Argentina led 2-0. They were minutes away from glory. Then, in a dizzying 97-second span, Mbappé scored twice. The world was stunned. The dream was crumbling. Scaloni, on the touchline, absorbed the shock. In extra time, when Argentina scored again through Messi, France equalized again through Mbappé. At 3-3, most teams would have broken. Scaloni's Argentina did not. They held on for penalties. Once again, the preparation, the family spirit, and the legendary mentality of Emiliano Martinez took over. Argentina won the shootout 4-2. As Gonzalo Montiel's penalty hit the net, the world watched Lionel Messi finally grasp his holy grail. But the camera panned to the sideline, to the man standing quietly in a suit, his face a mask of exhausted, profound relief. Lionel Scaloni. The journeyman player, the video analyst, the interim joke, he had just orchestrated the greatest story in World Cup history. He had taken a team from the ruins of 2018 to the summit of the world. The quiet man from Pujato had become immortal. But the story doesn't end with the lifting of the trophy. For Scaloni, a new, even more complex challenge was about to begin. Life after the ultimate peak.
The confetti had settled on the Lusail pitch. The trophy tours across Buenos Aires were winding down. For the world, Lionel Scaloni had completed his mission. But in the mind of a true builder, the completion of one masterpiece simply marks the beginning of the next foundation. To understand the immortality of Argentina's 2022 triumph, one must dissect not the celebration, but the blueprint. This is the story of the architectural principles, the tactical DNA,
the psychological engineering, and the cultural alchemy that transformed a group of talented individuals into an indestructible force. This is how Scaloni built a dynasty from the dust of despair. Chapter 1. The Tactical Canvas: Fluidity over Dogma. Scaloni entered the job labeled a defensive-minded coach, a product of his pragmatic playing days. This was a profound misreading. Scaloni is, above all, a chameleon. His philosophy is not rooted in a rigid system like Pep Guardiola's positional play or Jurgen Klopp's heavy metal football. It is rooted in problem-solving. He began with a 4-3-3 to provide stability. He evolved into a 4-3-1-2 to maximize Messi. But these formations were merely starting points, fluid shapes that mutated within the flow of a game. The genius of his tactical setup lay in its principles, not its positions. The principle of vertical progression. Scaloni abhorred sterile possession. Every pass had to have intention, preferably forward. The midfield trio of De Paul, Paredes, Fernandes, and McAllister was instructed to bypass lines with direct, incisive passes, not sideways circulation. This is why Argentina could switch from defense to attack in terrifying seconds, as seen in Di Maria's World Cup final goal, a move that began with a direct long ball from De Paul. The principle of controlled asymmetry. While the team sheet showed balance, the in-game function was beautifully lopsided. Right-back Nahuel Molina was given license to underlap and become an auxiliary midfielder, while left-back Marcos Acuna or Nicolas Tagliafico often held a deeper, more conservative line to provide defensive cover. This asymmetry created unpredictable passing angles and overloads in specific channels, confusing organized defenses. The principle of the free 10. Messi's role was the ultimate tactical luxury, earned through universal sacrifice. Scaloni constructed the entire team's defensive shape to compensate for Messi's limited tracking back. The nearest midfielder, often De Paul, would cover his zone, and the entire unit would shift laterally. In attack, Messi was given a hunting license to drift anywhere between the lines. The two strikers' movements were choreographed to create the Messi space. Lautaro or Alvarez would drag center-backs wide, creating a canyon in the middle for Messi to exploit. Chapter 2. The Psychological Foundry: Forging La Familia. Tactics win games. Brotherhood wins trophies. Scaloni's most revolutionary work was not on the tactics board, but in the human heart. He engineered one of the most potent team spirits in modern football history by implementing a culture of radical belonging. The eradication of hierarchy. In the old Argentina, a divide existed between the European-based stars and the local league players, between Messi and the rest. Scaloni, with the quiet authority of a former squad player himself, demolished this wall. He implemented a first-name equal footing rule in the camp. Veterans like Otamendi were tasked with mentoring youngsters like Enzo Fernandez, not bossing them. When a young player made a mistake, the response was collective support, not individual blame. This was exemplified after the Saudi Arabia loss. The leaders of the team immediately stood before the press, unified in taking responsibility, protecting the younger players from the media storm. The rituals of belonging. Scaloni understood that culture is built through shared rituals. The team's daily mate circle was sacred. The intense, competitive, small-sided training games, los partiditos, were where chemistry was forged. He brought in psychologists not to fix problems, but to strengthen bonds, using group sessions where players shared personal stories and vulnerabilities. When Angel Di Maria was struggling with injuries and doubt ahead of the Copa América final, it was not just Scaloni, but his teammates who collectively rebuilt his confidence, reminding him of his inescapable role in their story. The language of protection. Scaloni positioned himself as the ultimate shield. He absorbed all external criticism, deflecting it away from his players. In return, the players developed a ferocious loyalty to him.
They were not just playing for Argentina, they were playing for Scaloni. This created a powerful feedback loop of trust. When he made a bold, unpopular selection, like starting Di Maria in the World Cup final, the team trusted it implicitly because El Profe had earned that right. Chapter 3: The Laboratory of Preparation, the Analyst's Edge. Beneath the warm family atmosphere lay the cold, precise mind of Scaloni, the eternal video analyst. His preparation was exhaustive, leaving nothing to improvisation.
Micro-scouting. Argentina's staff didn't just analyze opponents, they psychoanalyzed them. They studied penalty takers' habits, goalkeepers' diving tendencies, and even individual players' body language under pressure. Emiliano Martinez's legendary penalty-saving heroics were not pure chaos. They were informed by dossiers of data on each potential taker, combined with Martinez's own psychological warfare, which Scaloni actively encouraged as a weapon. Scenario training. The team regularly practiced specific game scenarios, defending a 1-0 lead with 10 minutes left, chasing a game, playing with a red card. The dramatic, nerve-shredding endings to the Netherlands and France matches were, in a sense, rehearsed. The players' resilience was not just innate, it was a trained muscle. When France scored 2 goals in 2 minutes, the panic was momentary because they had a mental protocol to fall back on: reset, compact, and trust the structure. The bespoke game plan. There was no Scaloni style imposed on every opponent, there was a Scaloni solution. Against Mexico, the solution was patience and a moment of individual magic. Against Poland, it was controlled possession to draw out their block. Against Croatia, it was a proactive, aggressive press to disrupt Modric's rhythm. Each plan was a custom-made key for a specific lock. Chapter 4: The Symphony of In-Game Management. Scaloni's calm demeanor on the touchline belied a fiercely active mind. His substitutions were rarely reactive, they were preemptive strikes. The tactical substitution. Bringing on Lisandro Martinez for the more creative Lo Celso or Papu Gomez when protecting a lead was a signal to switch to a back five, adding defensive grit and aerial dominance. The energy substitution. Introducing Julian Alvarez for Lautaro Martinez was never a critique of Lautaro's quality, but a strategic injection of relentless, high-octane pressing to terrorize tired defenders. The psychological substitution. Sending on veterans like Paulo Dybala or Ángel Correa for the final minutes of a secured win was a gesture of inclusion, reinforcing the family bond and keeping the entire squad emotionally invested. Lionel Scaloni did not just win a World Cup, he presented a new paradigm for international management, a holistic model where tactical intelligence, profound human connection, and forensic preparation are given equal weight. He proved that in the age of superclubs and galacticos, a national team built as an authentic brotherhood, led by a humble architect, could still conquer the world. However, the most difficult chapter in any fairy tale comes after Happily Ever After. The next test for Scaloni would be about renewing a champion under the crushing weight of expectation, history, and time itself. The dust of ecstasy settles. The last parade bus is parked. The golden confetti is swept from the obelisco. For Lionel Scaloni, the morning after immortality dawned not with rest, but with a heavier, more complex reality. Winning the World Cup was a monumental feat of construction. Remaining at the summit, defending the crown, and navigating the inevitable transition of a golden generation, this was an entirely new discipline, one fraught with psychological traps, aging legs, and a world now desperate to see the king fall. Part 5 is the story of the champion's hardest fight, the fight against decay, expectation, and the ghost of his own past triumph. The psychological mountain, living with a ghost. The first challenge was intangible yet all-consuming, the ghost of Qatar.
Every training session, every team talk, every friendly match was now haunted by the perfect memory of December 18th, 2022. How do you motivate men who have reached the absolute pinnacle of their profession? How do you instill hunger when the ultimate feast has been consumed? Scaloni's approach was characteristically subtle yet profound. He did not try to erase the past, he ritualized it, then carefully put it away. In the first team gathering after the World Cup, he allowed the celebration to linger. They relived the highlights, shared private jokes from the camp, and honored the achievement. Then, in a pivotal meeting, he stood before his family and delivered a clear message. That trophy belongs to us forever, but it is now in the museum. This room, this shirt, is about writing the next history. Our story is not finished. Our identity, how we fight, how we stay together, that is not negotiable. The world thinks we will be satisfied. Let's show them we are just getting started. He shifted the narrative from defending a title to honoring a legacy through continued excellence. The goal was no longer the World Cup, it was to protect the sacred culture they had built, to prove their greatness was not a one-time event, but the character of a generation. The tactical conundrum: evolution or preservation? On the pitch, Scaloni faced a chessboard where the pieces were slowly changing. Key architects of the triumph were aging. Angel Di Maria, the eternal big-game wizard, was nearing the end. Nicolás Otamendi, the defensive berserker, was defying time but not biology. The irreplaceable Lionel Messi was for the first time openly contemplating life after football. Scaloni could not simply replay the Qatar blueprint. Opponents had spent months dissecting it. The high press, aggressive midfield that overran Croatia and controlled France for 80 minutes was now a known formula. Scaloni entered a new phase of tactical innovation. The gradual integration, the inheritance plan, began quietly. In came new blood, but not as revolutionaries, as apprentices. Marcos Senesi, Gonzalo Montiel, and Valentin Carboni were phased in during friendlies and qualifiers. Scaloni paired them with old guards, creating a mentor-pupil dynamic on the field. Young Enzo Fernandez was given more playmaking responsibility, slowly absorbing the strategic role once held by Leandro Paredes. System flexibility. He began experimenting with a 3-5-2 formation more frequently. This served multiple purposes. It provided extra defensive cover for an aging backline, it utilized the wingback prowess of players like Nicolás Tagliafico and Nahuel Molina, and it created a new box midfield that could dominate possession against technically strong sides. It was a system designed to control games differently, to be less reliant on explosive transitions and more on sustained pressure. Life beyond Messi, the unthinkable preparation. Scaloni's most delicate task was preparing the team for the eventual unthinkable moment. He did this not by diminishing Messi's role, but empowering others within it. He gave Julián Álvarez and Lautaro Martínez more creative license in games where Messi was rested. He tasked Alexis McAllister with being the primary set-piece taker in certain matches. These were trial runs under the radar of meaningless friendlies, ensuring the system could survive, even if the sun around which it revolved one day set. The external pressure, the target on their backs. Every opponent now treated a match against Argentina as their World Cup final. The intensity, the physicality, the sheer desperation to beat the champions multiplied. CONCACAF teams, Asian champions, European giants all came with a frenetic energy meant to disrupt Argentina's rhythm. Scaloni had to teach his team to thrive as the hunted, not the hunters. He reframed this pressure as the ultimate sign of respect. They give us their best because they know what we are, he told his players. This is our new normal. Embrace the fight. Our quality will decide the game, but only if our intensity matches theirs first. He drilled them on managing game states, how to silence hostile crowds with possession, how to provoke frustrated opponents, how to turn the target on their back into a psychological advantage. The first true test? Copa America 2024. The roadmap to the next summit was clear: successfully defend the Copa America in the United States in 2024. This was the mandatory next step to cement their era and build momentum towards the 2026 World Cup. But the tournament presented unique hurdles: unfamiliar venues, artificial turf in some stadiums, and a Brazil desperate for revenge, not to mention a rising United States and an always dangerous Uruguay under Marcelo Bielsa. Scaloni's campaign began not with tactical lectures, but with a reaffirmation of the covenant. He recalled the core of the World Cup team, ensuring the sacred culture was intact. He integrated only one or two new faces to maintain stability. His message was consistent: this tournament is not an obligation, it is a privilege. It is our chance to show that La Scaloneta is not a memory, it is a living, breathing team. Every match is a step towards 2026. Every victory is a tribute to who we are. The group stage would be a controlled burn, a chance to find rhythm. The knockout stages would be the real examination, not just of tactics, but of will. Could this group, with its mix of aging legends and eager heirs, find the same furious unity when the prize was not unprecedented glory, but the consolidation of it? Could Scaloni, the master architect of a dream, now become the meticulous sustainer of a dynasty? The crown, he was discovering, was far heavier to wear than it was to win.
The final whistle of a tournament, any tournament, signals an end. For Lionel Scaloni and his Argentina, however, every ending has been meticulously designed as a new beginning. As we reach the conclusion of this journey, from the forgotten assistant to the immortal champion, we must look beyond trophies and tactics to the enduring imprint of a philosophy. Part 6 is not an epilogue, but an elevation. It examines the Scaloni doctrine, the set of principles that transcended a single victory and planted the flag of a new footballing culture, one that promises to resonate long after the last member of La Scaloneta hangs up his boots. The doctrine defined the 4 pillars of Scaloni's immortality. Scaloni's legacy is codified not in a playbook, but in a mindset. It is a replicable model for success in modern football, built on 4 non-negotiable pillars. Contextual intelligence over ideological dogma. Unlike visionary coaches like Guardiola or Klopp, who impose a singular, dominating style, Scaloni is a master of adaptation. His ideology is pragmatic excellence. He possesses the rare humility to shape his tactics to the players he has, not force his players into a rigid tactical mold. He saw that the route to maximizing Messi was not through gegenpressing or tiki-taka, but through building a balanced, hard-working structure that could afford one artist absolute freedom. This flexibility, the 4-3-3 for stability, the 4-3-1-2 for creativity, the 3-5-2 for control, ensures his teams are never predictable or easy to dismantle. He taught the world that international management, with its limited training time, demands this contextual intelligence above all else. The primacy of the collective soul. In an era of superstar cults and individual brand building, Scaloni performed a radical act. He made the collective sacred. He understood that talent wins games, but brotherhood wins trophies. The Familia was not a marketing slogan, it was the operational core. He engineered this by eradicating cliques, sharing responsibility, and celebrating collective accountability. He turned the dressing room into a sanctuary of mutual trust, where the pressure of a nation was filtered through a buffer of unwavering camaraderie. This environment didn't just make players perform, it made them fight for each other. It turned moments of certain defeat, like the penalty shootouts against the Netherlands and France, into displays of collective nerve. This pillar is his most profound gift to football, a blueprint for building team spirit in a fractured age. The unseen work, preparation as a moral value. Scaloni elevated preparation from a routine to a religion. His work ethic, forged in his years as an anonymous video analyst, became the team's backbone. Every set piece, every opponent's tendency, every potential game scenario was rehearsed until it became muscle memory. This meticulousness bred a powerful confidence. When chaos struck, Mbappé's 2 goals in 2 minutes, the team didn't descend into panic, they reverted to their training. They knew what to do because they had already lived it. Scaloni proved that genius in football is not just a flash of inspiration, it is the obsessive accumulation of small, unseen advantages that, when combined, look like magic to the outside world. Quiet leadership as ultimate authority. In a sport of charismatic egos and fiery touchline theatrics, Scaloni redefined power. His authority stems not from volume, but from calm competence. He leads by earning respect, not demanding it. He speaks sparingly, but when he does, every word carries weight. He protects his players publicly and challenges them privately. This quiet strength created a profound sense of security within the squad. Players felt empowered to take risks, knowing their coach's faith was unshakable. He demonstrated that true leadership is about serving the group, fostering an environment where excellence can flourish organically, not through fear, but through profound mutual respect.
The ripple effect. How Scaloni changed Argentine football and beyond. The impact of the Scaloni doctrine extends far beyond a golden generation, healing a nation's psyche. For Argentina, Scaloni did more than win a World Cup. He healed a 36-year-old wound and reconciled a fractured relationship between the national team and its people. He replaced the narrative of tragic failure with one of resilient triumph. He made the albiceleste shirt a symbol of joy and unity again, worn with pride not just in Buenos Aires, but in every corner of the country and across the diaspora. A new pathway for managers. Scaloni shattered the elitist myth that only coaches with glamorous playing careers or extensive European club pedigrees can succeed at the highest level. He legitimized the path of the apprentice, the student, the meticulous analyst. He showed that deep football intelligence, emotional quotient, and humble work can outweigh a famous name. He has become a beacon for every assistant coach dreaming of more. The blueprint for international football. In the club-dominated 21st century, Scaloni revived the art and science of international management. He provided a template: build a club-like culture within a national team, prioritize psychological bonds, adapt tactics to your unique personnel. Federations worldwide now look at the Argentine model as the new gold standard. The unfinished symphony. The road to 2026 and beyond. As the horizon beckons towards the 2026 World Cup in North America, Scaloni's greatest challenge unfolds: transition with triumph. Can he integrate a new wave of talent, the emerging stars across Europe, into the sacred family without diluting its essence? Can he manage the gradual emotional departure of legends like Messi and Di Maria, turning their sunset into a graceful dawn for others? Early signs suggest the doctrine is robust. The seamless incorporation of youngsters like Alejandro Garnacho and Valentin Barco into a squad still led by old warriors shows the culture is transferable. The continued hunger in qualifiers, the willingness to fight for every ball, proves the spirit is alive. Lionel Sebastian Scaloni's story is no longer just a football fairy tale. It is a case study in leadership, a testament to the power of culture over individual genius, and a reminder that the most powerful revolutions are often led by the quietest voices. He didn't just give Argentina a World Cup, he gave them an identity reborn. He didn't just create a team, he created a family. He didn't just win, he taught the world how to win with grace, with intelligence, and with an unbreakable heart. The final chapter of his coaching career is yet to be written, but whether the next page holds another trophy or the inevitable passing of the torch, one thing is eternally cemented. Lionel Sebastian Scaloni, the boy from Pujato, the journeyman fullback, the video analyst, has already ascended into the pantheon of football's immortal architects. His legacy is not a statue, but a living, breathing, playing doctrine, the enduring echo of La Scaloneta.